options, Matt, because we were still, hoping that Brad could come back. Freeberg is still, nursing his ankle. The team's been on a good roll. I might be a little bit more frugal in keeping the same lineup when it's going well. I like to keep the same rhythm. I'm also one not to, perhaps put as much stock into, playing on 2 days rest. I think that's, again, it's something that you can overcome mentally. Having said that, were they as sharp as they could have been tonight? No. But I think that was as to be expected. The game in LA was such a massive victory that, they were a little flat. But again, they somehow found a way to win, and that's what you like about, teams that can, make it to the playoffs and do some good things in the playoffs.
Harvey?
Coach, in the first half, and in particular right after the goal was scored, the Fire were pressuring you very high in your own end. How do you feel you were able to deal with the pressure, and what specifically did you want to do tactically to try to get out of your own third?
Well, the game is ebbs and flows, I would say. I don't want our team to, once they score the first goal, then just drop off. I think sometimes teams do that and they let teams back in. I want to make sure that I'll look at that on film. I'm not so sure I agree with you 100%. I'll look at it, though. Thanks for that. Again, just having them believe that they can keep possession and keeping possession in the attacking half of the field would be my preference. But, it is the MLS. There's a lot of parity. Chicago's a good team. They have some good players. So you knew there was going to be points in the game where they were going to create some stuff, and I think that just manifested itself.
Ryan?
Coach, you had 20 points from the first 20 matches this season. Since you took over, you have 21 points in the last 10, and you guys are in playoff position for the first time all season. How would you react to your team finally getting over that hump and as you make your playoff push for the last 4 games of the season?
Well, you give them all the credit. That is a committed group. From the day I took over, they've given me everything. They've given everything for themselves, I would put it. Nico has come in, we've talked about this, the new coach bump, all of those things. But I think they really truly believe that they have ownership of the team. And I think that kind of was one of the bigger pieces that has allowed them to believe that they could win in LA, that they can come back on 2 days rest and get a performance, that they could go to Orlando and win, that they could overcome the loss of arguably our best player. That's a strong group in there. So, again, it's just testament to them.
Mark?
Brian, just taking away that PK goal in LA last week, defense allowed just 1 goal in the last 3 games. Can you talk about that a little bit and just what the guys are doing back there?
Well, I'll start, Mark, by saying that the front two start the defending. So Nico and Jordan, they put a lot of pressure on teams, all the way from way up here. And so that helps Chad and Roman. Ozzy and Christian have done a great job of kind of shielding the back line. But it really starts, again, up at the front. It's a team concept. We want to get guys behind the ball. We want to make sure we're selective in our pressure. So, whenever we lose the ball higher up the field, we're going to press. Whenever there's a throw-in deep in their half, we're going to press. If we have to lump balls down the field and the defender's got his back turned, we're going to press. So we do that, and the defending starts from up here. Now, can I take a moment to say Jovan Jones, who's playing on a broken toe, has done great? Yes. Tyrone has been solid. Roman and Chad, yes, I've called it a work in progress, but I think you see baby steps every game. And then you end with Stefan Fry, who consistently makes big saves. So I think they've done pretty well.
John?
Coach, as you made the preparation for this game, you talked about 2 days rest. Did you anticipate the match would be this close?
Well, I don't know really how to answer that. I mean, every game in our league is going to be a tight game at some point. So once we scored the first goal, would I have loved to score the second? Of course. Would we, maybe a half a touch when Nelson slides in, or, the final pass maybe being a little off tonight? Would I have loved to be sitting here and the score be higher? Sure. Maybe I could have rested a few guys. But at the end of the day, it's MLS, and again, Chicago is a good team, and credit to them for making it a tough game.
Jackson?
Coach, when Roman Torres is healthy, how does he change the way the defense in the back four specifically play with him in there with Chad? And then I'll add on to that really quick. When they're both in there together, do you believe that you have the best center back tandem in the league?
I think I have a really, really good tandem. I'm hesitant to say the best in the league because I think it's too early. I think that would put a little unfair pressure on them. I think they're working on it. I think certainly as you look through the rest of this year and into next year, I'll be able to answer that question a little bit better for you. But I like Roman because you saw the one play where he stepped 10 yards into midfield and he wins that ball. He's aggressive in nature. In 2014, when Zach Scott was next to Chad for large parts of the season, Zach has a little bit more aggressive mindset, and I think Chad, balanced with a guy who's a little bit angrier, a little bit feistier, I think that's a good mix, because you don't want to have two really angry guys because then they're prone to make mistakes. You don't want to have two, calm and calculating guys because then they're both the same. So I think the give and take between the two of them is the start of a good combination.
Follow-ups. Masvidal?
Ozzy and Rodan, they seem to have one of those games that went flashy, but they did some work in the midfield that we might not have seen. Could you assess the work they did behind the scenes?
Their contribution to every game is vital for us. Playing in that 4-2-3-1, those guys really have to do a lot. They're, the way we play is we want Tyrone and Jovan to go. So their role as shifting over and being the right outlet and covering in case the ball turns over, to, getting the ball off, the center backs, getting the ball from the goalkeeper back in this half of the field. I mean, they have a lot of responsibility. And you add, Ozzy just being, a really good captain for the last couple of games. I think they've done well, and I love both of those guys being in the middle of the field for us.
Matt?
Chad's now scored more goals this year than in the previous 5 combined. Is that just a statistical oddity, or are you guys employing him in any different way that can sort of explain this surge here?
I think the goal, and the half goal that he scored in L.A. is just indicative of Andreas Avancic's service. I think his service is tremendous, and Chad's willingness to stick his head in there. Teams now have to go after, watch for Roman, which frees up Chad, and then you have Flacco, who's good in the air, and then you have Jordy, who's a big body, and then you have a guy who swings the ball in really well, and I think that creates problems for other teams.
Ryan?
Coach, what did you think of Nicolas Lodero's yellow card? And now that he is suspended for the next match on the yellow card accumulation, how do you prepare without him in Vancouver?
Well, I mean, the foul happened right in front of me. I mean, it's a technicality. I mean, it could have gone either way. Those things are unfortunate. We'll certainly address that with Nico because, we don't want him to get a yellow card for something like that. If he has to, pull a guy down who's breaking in on goal or, something like that, I mean, that's kind of, it's always a tricky one. But as far as the preparation, again, it just comes down to a group of players that believes. If I bring Nelson Valdez in, I don't think you're going to see Nelson worrying about whether Nico's on the field. If I bring Eric Freeberg on, I don't think Eric Freeberg's going to be worried that Nico's not on the field. I mean, they just have that mindset. I mean, we lost Dempsey. And what has this team done? They've just continued. So I think we'll definitely make preparations. It's a big loss, but, you know, we're going to go up to Vancouver trying to win.
Harvey?
Coach, speaking of Nelson Valdez, 2 or 3 times tonight, he very nearly scored a goal. When a guy is that close consistently and just, you know, an inch or 2 wide or a little too bit far behind the ball, do you have to say anything to him? Is there anything to say to him, or is it just kind of known and understood that eventually one's going to fall for him?
The guy has played at a much higher level than I ever did. I don't have to say anything to him. He's a tremendous pro. In LA, I thought he was unlucky. Tonight, he was, you know, that ball kind of bounced up on Joven. I mean, if that ball's on the floor, it's a tap in. I think there's things just that haven't gone his way, but it's coming. He does such a tremendous job for us, you know, whether we're behind or ahead late in games, that, again, it's a really good thing for me to have to come off the bench with Freeberg, Nelson, some of those guys that can really make impacts as subs.
Steve?
After you brought Valdez on, it looked like he and Morris were kind of splitting time up top. What was the tactical approach once he was on the field?
No, it was a 4-4-2. When Nelson comes on, we switch into some version. I mean, the other day I had Nico out on the left. Today I had, you know, Christian, Ozzy, Eric, Nico ahead of them, and the 2 guys up front. But it's basically some version of a 4-4-2 because they're both forwards. Neither one of them are good at playing a number 10, so, you know.
Other questions, guys? Jackson? Harvey, yeah?
I got one more. Coach, you have a couple of guys that are within a yellow card or 2 of suspension like Ladero. At this point in the season, how do you tell guys to be smart with their tackles, but without neutering their ability to defend?
Well, we tell them just that. Just play the game. Just don't do anything silly. I mean, that's all we can do. They're in control of their actions on the field. I have complete faith in them. So it's a pretty easy message. It's just harder for them in the heat of the moment at times.